How's it going, everyone? In today's video we're going to be covering the sound of Across Boundaries. For anyone unaware, this is the collaborative duo consisting of artists Chris Stussy and Locklead. In this one we're going to be breaking down their dance floor bomb, Pumpin, which came out as part of their Synergy EP earlier this year. There's a lot to cover in this one, so without further ado, let's get right into it.
Keep it pumpin'. Bump, bump, bump. Keep it pumpin'. Bump, bump, bump. Keep it pumpin'. Bump, bump, bump. Keep it pumpin'. Bump, bump, bump.
So what you're seeing here is essentially the recreation I've done of this track, which I think is fairly close, both in terms of the sounds used and the arrangement. The first thing that we'll talk about is going to be the vocals. What we've essentially got is a bunch of ad-libs doing this kind of call and response.
Bump, bump, bump. Keep it pumpin'. Bump, bump, bump. Keep it pumpin'. Bump, bump, bump. Keep it pumpin'. Bump, bump, bump.
You've essentially got all these different ad-libs coming in and out of each other. The first one we've got is kind of like the main ad-lib.
Keep it pumpin'.
So he's basically taken this ad-lib from one of those kind of ad-lib sources. If you watch the vocal tutorial I did, I talk about them all, and you can also check out our packs for them. He's basically taken a few different ad-lib phrases, then he's kind of gone on to manipulate them further. So the first phrase he started with is this.
Keep it pumpin'.
But then what he's done is he's got these layers as responses. So the second one he's got is this kind of syllable,
Bump, bump, bump.
where he's essentially just taken
Pumpin'. Pump, 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 pump.
different kind of hits from that, and he's creating this like rhythmic percussive layer as a response.
Keep it pumpin'. Bump, bump, bump.
That's already a really creative use of the ad-lib. And then to take that even further, he's got this kind of texture, which I think was from this. And you'll see these layers are all quite different in terms of rhythm. So just from one ad-lib, he's created 3 layers, which just kind of set the foundation for that track.
Keep it pumpin'. Bump, bump, bump. Keep it pumpin'. Bump, bump, bump.
So that's the main one. We've then got this hit here, which is basically being used in the kind of traditional sense as SFX. We've kind of got a similar thing going on here with these kind of textures again. He's basically just experimented with different rhythms, basically creating this kind of percussive scratch effect. I think most of them are very similar, basically doing this kind of build up and then almost continuing for a bit into the phrase as well. And if I just play it in the context. So, got the keep it pumping ad-libs, you've got these kind of dance ones, and then you've got this kind of random one, which is being introduced in the breakdown.
Well, I got a story to tell for those of you who want to hear.
It just fits so well. Just this kind of like placement, it kind of like really draws your attention to that particular lyric.
Well, I got a story to tell for those of you who want to hear.
So that is essentially the vocals in a nutshell. The next group we'll move on to is going to be the bass, which has a few different layers. I think the main layer of this track, which also kind of makes it for me, is this kind of mid bass. What we've done for this is we've used Serum. Essentially how we've created this is basically loading a wavetable which looks like this. We've used digital and we've used this wave. We've pitched it down and we've then layered that with a sub down 2. Then if we look at the filter, we've got this, and that's been mapped to a envelope where the sustain and decay have been brought down a tad, and it's basically doing that kind of classic filter modulation there. For the pattern, we're basically just working down and up in kind of sequence. I think this layer is one of those examples where you've got such a nice sound that you can kind of go a bit easier on the pattern. For the processing of this mid bass, what we've essentially done is we've done a bit of creative EQing. We've then got this kind of delay. What we've essentially got here is parallel processing, where I've used an audio effect rack and I've duplicated the chain. On one of those channels, we've got this delay, and the delay has also been panned. Sounds like this. You'll see how much the delay kind of adds. It almost adds like extra notes in a way. So just kind of creative stuff you can do with regards to delays, reverbs, and stereo widening to really get the best out of sounds. We've then layered that with a sub. For this sound, what we've done is we've taken the basic MIDI waveform, we've altered the wavetable position slightly, we've put it down 2 octaves, and we've layered that once again with a sub. So we've got that sub basically just being used to add depth to the sound, and then we've got this, if I just start with the pattern. So this has basically been used as a bit of variation, and I think the kind of character of the sound also kind of changes the dynamic of the track in a way as well. Something else that's quite interesting about this pattern is the placement. It's basically the response to that main one, and only ever plays in response. So this one's quite interesting because it's got that kind of garage womp character to it. It's essentially a kind of Reese type sound, and the way I've done that is I've taken 2 of the basic waveforms, we've pitched them down 2 octaves, layered them with a sub, we filtered it like that, and then we've kind of used this LFO so that it comes up slowly and then falls slowly. So it's kind of an evolving sound, which is quite nice. So that's the sub bass. The final one we have is just this kind of slap bass. I think a pretty common feature in Stussy and Locklead's kind of tracks is these kind of funk inspired instruments. So we've essentially got this. So the pattern once again is quite simple, literally just going between the 2 octaves. And it's kind of responding to the other ones. You'll see there's overlap across the notes there. So altogether we've got this really nice kind of bass group which has that kind of core pattern, and then it has these kind of secondary patterns which complement it and help to add a bit of depth and variety to the group. The only other thing I'll mention is just the differences in patterns, where he's basically got different variations just to add interest to the track. So you've got that kind of main one we showed, and then you've got ones that are more stripped out. Essentially just take that kind of core pattern and remove notes. So that is basically the bass. Up next we've got these synths. The first one is this pluck. With this sound, I always hear these kind of, I want to say like ethnic instruments that are very inspired by sounds from abroad. I always hear these kind of sounds in both Stussy and Locklead's tracks, and I think this is kind of the perfect example of that. If I was to advise where you'd maybe find these sounds, I'd advise maybe going to like guitars and just kind of fancy instrumentation, and basically see if a plugin exists for those kind of instruments that you'd maybe find in different parts of the world. But in this case, I've created my own version from scratch. What we've got here is this basic sine wave plus 1 octave. We've added unison and we've detuned it slightly, and then for the effects, what we've essentially got going on is a bit of delay, reverb, and some filtering. Something else that's quite interesting about this sound is you'll see there's a lot of automation changes going on with regards to the echo over time, but we've got a few more automations with regards to like pitching. We'll just play it. If you hear that sound in the original, you probably think it's just an SFX, but it's kind of an SFX that's been created by automating the synths. So you'll see there's a lot of different kind of automations going on. If I just show all the ones that have been automated, most of this is just basic reverb, delay, and gain, but the kind of effect it's creating is quite weird because I think the feedback is increasing here, which is making it really warped. There's loads of things you can do with automation, and hopefully that just gives you a bit of insight into the possibility. So that's the pluck bell, and then we've just got these kind of iconic Stussy influenced pads. For the chords, we've got these pretty deep chords spanning multiple notes, so I think it's just a simple minor chord there, and then I think you've basically just got the 7th, and then basically these notes above here is literally just the A, but you could basically take one of the notes that's already in this chord and pitch it up an octave just to make it even fatter. For the sound, what we've essentially done is experimented with 2 wavetables once again that have pretty nice character to them. We've gone a bit more hectic on the kind of unison side of things just because it's that pad. That pad also has a bit of noise. We've shaped the envelope to be more aligned with that pad sound. The filter looks like that, and then there's just a bit of reverb. Just a kind of nice, simple pad. Like, I wouldn't overthink them. You can literally find so many nice pad presets out there. If we move down to this layer, we've gone a bit more creative with the actual chords. I think he's basically just done like different inversions of basic minor chords. I think this might be an F minor chord with the A and the C transposed, and then the way he's kind of done this pattern is he's got the chord falling into another one. Just as a kind of response almost to the first. So if I play them together. So that is basically the synths. With the drums of this track, they're a bit more stripped back, so I'll kind of whiz through them. We've got this kick. It's basically just a simple kind of punchy kick sample. I want to say 909. We've got this clap. Very simple, just the 2 and the 4. A little bit of the drum room preset on. Got these hats, starting off with this kind of 16th rhythm. That's kind of like the driving rhythmic hat. We've got these open ones. So this one's kind of that ringy kind of open hat, which is quite nice, has a lot of reverb on it, and it's been layered with this kind of more intense one, which is almost like a ride cymbal. Something else you'll notice that we've got going on is we've got this release automating, and we've essentially got that to kind of tighten the sample up. So these are very kind of minor things, but if you often find that your tracks sound very boring, these kind of minor things in the drums are just great ways to fix that. So we've essentially got this basic pattern so far, and we've just kind of spiced that up with a bit of percussion. So we've basically got this kind of rhythmic cowbell, basically doing that kind of driving rhythm once more. This is kind of like a rim shot perk. Final one we've got is not as constantly busy, but still adding. So these perks are basically simple sounds like toms, cowbells, rim shots, and the rhythms are just kind of helping to add more interest to the overall basic beat. I think it's just a great example of how to take your drums from simple to advanced. The final thing I'll just quickly touch on is these SFX. I don't normally talk about FX, but I think the sound choice and the SFX in this track are done really well, so I thought I'd just kind of quickly run through them. What I'll actually do is I'll just play the track and just kind of let you hear how these SFX help with different sections coming in and out.
Well, I got a story to tell.
Keep it bumpin'. Bump, bump, bump. Keep it bumpin'. Bump, bump, bump.
So essentially you've got loads of really nice sounds. I think when it comes to actual sound selection of SFX, you don't need to overthink it. Basically just look through your library, place it in the kind of traditional placements and see if it works. What I'll do is I'll quickly skim through some of the sounds and just kind of give you an idea of what you might look for when you're going through this process. So loads of really nice kind of synthy SFX, impacts, dubs with loads of echo on them. Like, these effects are so easy to find, and I'm basically just going to encourage you to go away, experiment with them, and most importantly, use them. So yeah, people, that's going to be it for this one. I always find it interesting when two very unique artists bring their sounds together in collaborative projects like this one, and I hope this breakdown has given you a bit more insight into the creative process of Across Boundaries. If you got any value from this, I'll ask that you leave it a like, hit that subscribe button, and be sure to share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to check out the description for the project, and be sure to click on one of the recommended videos I'll be leaving on screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.